Coming into the next best of 5 in the quarterfinals, TES, LPL's first team versus Fnatic, the second seed from Europe, going right into the action. Oli, TF, Ori, Syndra, Lucian and Zed. So Syndra and Zed are target plans against Villager and Knight. For Knight, he is still undefeated in summer with this champion, so it's understandable that it's banned. We see Graves, standard first pick, Senna Kindred. Yeah, Senna, very comfortable champion. And Kindred works well into Graves if piloted correctly. Also is enabling more DPS than Senna usually offers. Ezreal, a counter into Senna, and Zoe, more long range and kite potential into the first short range AD carries. Galio, as said before, quite nicely with Kindred, sets her up, can follow up, and so on. Shen, Camille, Yuumi, and Bard are then taken off. So some top lane bans and support bans, nothing too special. Rakan then elected a way for Galio to R into the fight. Finally we see something like that here. Leona then picked a counter to Rakan, and then Ornn, safe top laner with scaling abilities. It's just the first game, so both teams want to test the waters here. Then Singe actually is then picked by Whippo. Looking at the matchup, like I'm not super familiar with Singed, obviously, but from what I can deduce, he can't be punished that hard in the game by proxying, and then he's also not bullied in lane. So yeah, he is fine for that stage, and then in teamfights he can disrupt quite nicely and create some space as he combines some damage and tankiness in itself and is a multi-threat, so to say, enabling the rest of his team to follow up, right? So Singe is one of the few champions that actually can just run into the enemy team. So yeah, TS has big potential and some scaling aspects. Overall a good team comp, lacking some DPS against the tanks though, which is quite the hindrance against the AP bruisers of Fnatic. The champions are mobile, though giving them some safety. So if you're a mobile champion, you usually don't have that much damage, right? Because that's how balancing works in many cases. Fnatic has, after the Suning JDG series, finally drafted some great engage. Rakan with Galio and Singed. So they can just run in, Rakan can follow up, and Galio works well with both of them more or less. So yeah, better setup than sets or something of past games. With Senna and Galio you would expect them to lack some damage, and they're not super high damage here and can one-shot on, but with Kindred and the AP bruisers they still get some damage out of their champions. And yeah, with them also being rather tanky, the damage over time then increases. In front to back 5 vs 5, it's heavily dependent on cooldowns of either teams, like the summoners or items like QSS. But with TS skill level, you can assume they are able to use the terrain to their advantages and maneuver around Rakan or Singe, who are more or less rather linear if they are moving front to back. So yeah, but if Fnatic is able to use flanks, TP wards, and get reliably into the backline without burning core abilities first, then Ezreal and Zoe can deal with these two divers as they're moving too fast for their skill shots and so on. So yeah, that's how the game goes. Fnatic and Whippo able to disrupt TES play quite decently, and then get the first W quite surprisingly, right? TS heavily favored here. Yeah, moving into the next game. So Rakan, TF and Graves, Syndra, Lucian, Zed. Also we see Fnatic goes for red side again, which is usually regarded as the worst side. Senna first pick for TES. So yeah, Jackie Love is good with the champ, but they actually should want more damage from him. And yeah, so for the team it's not really that great. The pick has also some many weaknesses, for example her early game, low DPS, low mobility, and so on. So yeah, Fnatic has to punish this now. Ashe, Orianna. So yeah, looking for counters, as Ori is also a counter pick for Nemesis. Tam Silas then elected on the other side. Silas can steal okay, but not super massive ults here. And yeah, Tam is okay, protecting Senna from the obvious focus that she will receive. Additionally, you have to pick him here, because otherwise he will be banned in the next phase. Then Braum is selected lastly for the first phase. He can block like the stolen Ashe Ore, for example. And yeah, more slows are better against Senna. And also Silas usually doesn't like to be slowed that much. As a melee champion he then can be kited more easily. So yeah, Voli Hecarim. Hecarim ran very great here, noticing that their champs are very susceptible to him. Camille, Vladimir. I think they are good because, like for example, Vladimir can really tear apart Ashe and Orianna. They have little means to counteract him. Similarly, Braum also does not do much against him. In the next phase we see Ornn then picked. He's so at the safe top, so they can play to attack bot. Also good ult for Orianna, and with Braum on the team, the enemy can't really counter him in the way we usually see. GP Jarvan, so free farming in the top lane for GP in most cases, right? And Jarvan, well, he's not scaling well, but with his R, he can good combo with GP ult or Senna ult. And against Ori and Ashe, who are immobile and need the flash to get out of it. Yeah. But yeah, Kindred isn't picked yet, but we can expect that Kindred will come now, because we saw her in game 1. And yeah, against the potential Kindred pick, Jarvan will be heavily outscaled. We can do much against her in the 1v1. And yeah, Kindred and Ornn actually with his E can yeah, easily disrupt his ultimate. So yeah, it's not that great of a pick here. Also yeah, Kindred's last pick, as I mentioned before, was expected here with the heavy damage partition of Fnatic's team. Also in the jungle matchup, it's just too easy for them. So yeah, yeah, good against Jarvan, good against GP, more or less here. Not too good into Senna overall, but in this case her team makes that up for her. Yes, with GP Senna, you would think they scale super well, which they do partially, but with no other champions being that great in that game state, it's rather hard for them. But the most problematic part is again the enemy team here for them. Fnatic has better scaling and even scaling in all positions, and yeah, buying smarter items. And champions like Kindred, Braum, Ornn damper the playmaking abilities of TES very hard. All the slows and the invalidation of burst, and yeah, no engage or pick potential greatly. Besides Jarvan, a Fnatic can deny vision pockets for Silas or GP hidden barrels on like classic flanks. There's little way for TES after the mid game, or if they fall behind by a decent amount, to get back into the fights. As such, with Fnatic playing to what they drafted, bot aggression and fighting on their terms, and TES making individually some errors here and there, it ends up with another quite clear victory for Fnatic. So the EU team is now a 2-0 in this series. Going to game 3, Fnatic on match point, on the red side again, which is, yeah, it's not that bad, but it's limited in their bans, right? They have to ban the OP picks like Lucian, and Fnatic here is banning Syndra and Zed, which are not that OP in usual sense, but against TES it's very much expected to ban this. So Orianna, first pick, yeah, like picking it away from Nemesis, and also it's a very stable pick overall at the moment. Jhin Ornn, complementing each other with their long range and scaling abilities. Sion picked here very early, more hard engage and also good into Jhin. Yeah, in the lane he does well against Ornn, but it's 2 tanks, right? Ezreal then elected as well for more safety for Jackie Love, also with TS being more aggressive. Now with these champs, to have a self-relying AD carry, it's quite good for him. Also it's a comfortable pick for him, he's very used to it. Rakan then elected lastly in the first half. Good engage with Ornn, right? Both can follow up on each other. Not too great against Ezreal, but yeah, quite good against Orianna obviously. Akali, Kindred, Yuumi and Bart then banned. Yeah, we see support bans against Yanja quite often here, which seems to have worked for now. Then we see a Vel'Koz pick, again just like 2 days ago. It's good against Orianna if handled correctly. He can redominate with his long range, like especially imagine a jungle fight where like Sion can't ult into him and he can just throw his abilities over the wall. Well, yeah, that's the perfect scenario, but Fnatic plays around this with their other champions, which they absolutely can, right? Jhin also loves these corridors. He's very good into the other revealed picks of TES side for now. We see Lee Sin and Karma. So Karma, great for lane, also may speed up her mates to get to Vel'Koz and Jhin, but more helpful for the lane and then to potential snowball this, which is actually what they need. Lee Sin, another early game jungler for Kasa here, who can't farm that much, is AD though for their comp and the mid jungle duo, and yeah, is even going more for the mid game focus in face of Fnatic's comp here. Kha'Zix then lastly picked, another off-meta pick here from Fnatic, farming better than Lee Sin in most cases, right? Great against the squishies and forces more armor to amplify Vel'Koz as a single AP / true damage source here. Also potentially able to bridge Fnatic if he gets ahead early, but if he falls behind or TS gets a good lead, he will do little damage against the armor and the shield power for their team, and even like a squishy like Ezreal will absolutely go for Iceborne Gauntlet, which again is more armor and validates Kha'Zix's damage here. So Fnatic can engage with multiple means and then barrage the comparable short-ranged TS team, who are going for more mid-game champions here, and yeah, looking to get a great lead in that moment in the game, snowball that hard to force a quick end, or at least yeah, to force fights on their terms. TS has some picks, as I mentioned, to force fights. Similarly, Fnatic has also the tools to punish TS if they should overforce too much, but Fnatic's comp is very hard to play, and they rely on certain conditions and absolutely scaling to come online. So Fnatic then playing way too aggressive and handshaking needless fights find themselves in a hole, and they could not outscale and not come back. TS plays their snowball correctly, disabling Kha'Zix, like I said. If he falls behind in this matchup here, it's very hard for him. And yeah, and with the champions to move forward into the weak hole of Fnatic's comp, right? Yeah, they're actually able to get onto the key targets and blow them up repeatedly. So yeah, they get their first win and finish game 3 here. So moving to game 4. So yeah, TS looking to start the reverse sweep, and Fnatic again on match point. Syndra, Silas, Ezreal, Orianna, TF Lucian. Nothing too outstanding here in terms of the series, right? Taking Ezreal away from Jakilov to get him on a more targetable champion. Fnatic, as you notice now on blue side, they can target Van more easily here. Graves seemingly either valued for the champion in terms of conflict, or they want AD AP mid jungle. Yeah, otherwise picking the jungle in this matchup against Karsa so early is, I guess, not so smart. Additionally, you may have noticed Nidalee is actually open here, and yeah, to pick Graves above Nidalee is, yeah, you're valuing other things than straight up power, I have to feel like. So Nidalee and Senna on the other side, the healing carries, very strong and comfortable picks for both of them. Nothing much to say, very powerhouse picks here. Ashe set, so ADC picked to not reveal too much here. And also, yeah, set picking it away from Yuyanja. If you remember, they banned the champions beforehand. And yeah, Ashe also doing well against Senna, obviously, with a long range. Yeah, not too bad here so far. Yuyanja then gets Tahm Kench, protecting Senna again from the engages that are already elected. And yeah, not picking a lane to win early. Yeah, but they can now ban like more bad matchups for them. Which they do, they ban Braum and Rakan. It's not that bad into Tahm Kench, but yeah. More engage options from Hylissang taken away. Jace then picked here. Flex, he can do go mid lane or the top lane. And we already know he can do well against classic tanks if piloted correctly. A classic tank like Ornn, for example, and then Galio frontline, but now lacking massively in the AP department, right? Ornn and Galio both are magic damage champions, but they don't do much, right? They're just tanks. Maybe you could call Galio a bruiser, which is more fitting, I have to say. They get now more tools how they want to play, but 3 tanks, yeah. They devalue many champions of TS who don't do that much damage against champions like them, or like not much consistent damage. And also Ornn very good here, as he buys more armor, and champions like Senna and Jace want to go for lethality, and yeah, they can't do that, or if they do, they lose much damage here. So yeah, Sion then lastly, again seemingly good into Ornn, I guess. Also a good tank into the AD heavy, very heavy champs of Fnatic again. Fnatic with low damage comp will struggle in 5v5s, as I mentioned, lacking tons of AP. And Ashe is not really known for tons of damage. Similarly, Graves, he can just do damage. His short range and lethality builds usually hinder him in 1v9 performances if he doesn't have setup, which he has, but then again TS still has much to threaten him. Yeah, and even though, as I mentioned, they have these tankier champions, TS will be able to kill them with their mixed damage. On the other side, Graves and Ashe are the only damage source for Fnatic, and after Sion gets like 2 items, they will just tickle him. So yeah, Fnatic needs to engage fights where it's scrappy, chaotic, so Selfmade is able to go into the backline, is overall enabled to participate in the fight, because a Graves into these long range champions, it's not really great. And yeah, Graves is a relevant pick here, because he's the benefactor of the Ornn and the Galio pick, right? These are picks to enable him. TS on the other side, although they have these lethality champions, if they get these Last Whisper items and then are able to do tons of damage with like nearly 5 damage champions, and Senna sustain on top of that, they can absolutely win 5 vs 5 champs 5 versus 5 fights, obviously. Yeah, looking at the range difference, Graves, Ashe are completely outranged by Senna, Nidalee, and Jace. So yeah, if TS can soften up the Fnatic before Fnatic engages them, or if they can just soften up them and then engage them on their terms with Sion, they absolutely are able to win many or most fights. And yeah, that's similarly how it goes in the game. Fnatic able to get some scrappy fights in the early stages, but then losing just one 5 vs 5 completely because, well, as I said before, if Graves can't hit the targets in the backline and is just trying to hit Sion, he's not doing anything here. Ashe seemingly also needs many more items to really kill tanks. And yeah, Fnatic not able to get into the backline and then insta lose. So yeah, the team comp then not able to get the wards and the positioning to engage from multiple sides, and also TS obviously playing out the game very fine, not doing many mistakes here. Yeah, it's like do or die for TS, so they're more cleaner than before. Going into the last and final game, TS now looking down Fnatic for the reverse sweep, and yeah, Fnatic sweating in their seats. Syndra said Lulu, Lucian, Orianna, Graves. Besides maybe Lucian, all of these are target bans or bans that have developed in this series. So yeah, good to see that adaptability in the ban phase at least. Senna again picked away from Jackie Love, and also Reckless has played her quite a lot this year. So yeah, Comfort is the name of the game for both teams here. Ezreal Lee Sin, as I said, Comfort going for more mid-game power, which heavily won them the game in the previous matchups. Rakan TF, more Comfort. I'm not going to mention that every time now. Engage and pick, and also like the mid-game. Although TF into Lee Sin is, yeah, it's a bit hurtful, right? If Lee Sin has any stun in the mid lane, TF is just dead. So yeah, I have to watch out for that. Silas is then picked, as I mentioned, with a stun in the mid lane. Silas, Lee Sin is a very good mid lane duo, although they are not that strong in the meta at the moment. If they're piloted correctly, they can absolutely dominate 2v2 fights because of their skirmish heavy nature in their kits. Also, he has decent ults to steal so far. Just a TF ult in general is quite nice. And yeah, another mid-game champion with more AP for their team. Yuumi, Sion, Camille, and Kindred then banned. Kindred and Sion, yeah, we saw them dominate games previously. And Yuumi, Camille are more targeted and more meta bans. Leona then elected, a go-to counter into Rakan, also works well into the other immobile carries. Yeah, and spikes in the mid-game as well. GP Gragas, AP jungler and AP mid lane against Silas. If you watched the Morellonomicon video, you know Silas has the highest base MR, so 2 AP champions against him is very sinful, I have to say. But if you don't play around mid lane, then Gragas is fine here, I have to say, as again it works well for top lane, and also is a counter to Lee Sin if obviously played correctly, right? His body slam can counteract Lee Sin's Q, and his R is more difficult to hit, but if it's hit correctly, it's better than Lee Sin's. And then the GP elect to stand on in the late game, and also more DPS against potential tanks, which are last picked here. So yeah, also Leona's somewhat tanky, and Silas is a bruiser, so they need some DPS. And again, more AD for them, because Senna is not enough AD damage. Vladimir similarly, in many aspects I mentioned just a second ago, and also Fnatic has little means to stop him in late game fights, right? They don't want to blow Rakan ult on him, and Gragas ult and TF gold card are not really working against the Vladimir. Fnatic more reserved, and they want to scale and then pick and burst 1 or 2 targets. They also are mid-game focused, but yeah, in 5 versus 5 or like some skirmishes around mid lane, they are not very good here. And especially when they are being engaged upon. I mentioned the TF Silas and Lee Sin dynamic. Yeah, if Fnatic gets engaged, even champions like Gragas with AP don't look that great. TS on the other side, also very mid-game focused comp, and with many abilities to push their lead in this important stage in the game, right? They can just invade, use the stolen ultimates from Silas, and yeah, top lane is irrelevant here, but bot lane and mid lane can be heavily punished by Lee Sin Silas roams. And yeah, that's also how the game goes. So Burpo is able to get solo kills and lane pressure in top lane, but that doesn't matter. The game around him just really suffers. Also, the bot lane from Fnatic is not solo killing TES bot lane anymore. Mid lane looks quite different. Nemesis with early CS leads, but that's expected in the main range versus midi matchup. But then if the jungle dichotomy is added to it, it fell apart right and quickly here for Fnatic in this last game. Yeah, TS completes reverse sweep, first time in world's history actually, and lock an LPL team in the finals, right? Either them or Suning. And yeah, this happened mostly on Karsa's back, even though Selfmade was playing well. In the later games, the team fights were not going in Fnatic's way because of multiple reasons. Like draft was not that great anymore. Coordination and misexecution were plaguing the team as well. At some points, you saw Hylissing completely running in, engaging with everything he had, and the other team members were like posturing and maybe like didn't even want to fight here. TS actually can pat themselves on the back though. The first games were quite terrible for their standard, and even in game 4 there were many ugly moments for them. From heavy favorites to heavily sweating on the Fnatic's plates. Especially their bot lane got really destroyed in the early stages here. And yeah, Fnatic over eagerness and Karsa's resilience, yeah, they pushed back and forced the final win. TS then moving now into semis, as I said, against Suning. Looking not that great, but in the later games of the series they may have found their style, which could work for them. But if that's enough for Suning, who are very dominant at the moment, is something we have to wait and see. Actually, I really enjoy what Suning is doing, and I really was not convinced by TS performance today. So yeah, for me, Suning is more favored in this matchup now, even though they are the 3rd seed and TS is the 1st. Fnatic, it's quite heartbreaking for the players and fans alike. A 2-0 into a 2-3, losing early, and then they might have anticipated to lose here. I mean, it's a very strong matchup, but yeah, they probably had greater hopes for Worlds. Overall, a great Worlds showing though. Groups was fine, and now this, nearly beating LPL's first team. It's something nice. It will still hurt for them. And a year without titles, and then this fast exit from Worlds yet again. So yeah, the team has to... I think they don't have to implode. I mean, I think what they showed was good overall. They probably need just another try. I mean, yeah, players are growing old, but overall I think this meta fitted them nicely, and if this doesn't change too much, they don't have to change the roster, unless there's something going on in the background, which I do not know. Yeah, again, a more longer video here, but we got 5 games, so I think that's somewhat understandable. Yeah, tomorrow we had the last quarterfinals, Genji versus G2. Very excited to see this game. And yeah, that's it for now. Hope you all have a great Saturday, and yeah, to tomorrow.